Recently, I've been overwhelmed by the negative news around sexuality. There's a lot, okay? You may not see it. I see it because the algorithm picked me up and it shows me on all my apps awful stuff. So I decided to bring up today a discussion not with the news from my country or other countries from other continents, just a discussion from coaching, okay? And we're gonna look at a few defects, flaws. In Romanian, that's how we say defecte. So flaws or shortcomings in intimacy, and how we, or I would suggest that you navigate them. And if at any point you feel triggered, relax. I'm actually at the end gonna dissect myself, okay? Not you, not anybody. Because, I can always fall prey to these defects or flaws or shortcomings because I'm also human, okay? And I thought it would be really helpful to see somebody else dissect it, not you guys, okay, for a change. Hi, this is Liana, Holistic Intimacy Coach. Welcome back to my channel. Here, I help you get your orgasmic intimacy. Now, a little bit about my background in case you are new to this channel. Full name, Andreea-Liana, born and raised in Romania, Eastern Europe, okay, the former Soviet communist bloc. Born in 82, actually, so I've lived a few years in communism. And a lot of the millennials in the first decade from Eastern Europe will resemble Gen Xers from the United States or Western Europe, okay? Because, yeah, the conditions and all of that changed, okay, in our country and in the region a bit later on. So we've been raised also by boomer parents, just like a lot of Gen Xers. And a lot of the situations that they describe, okay, we went through it. And one of the things that this actually has had an impact on for me, or impacted me with, is that I tend to be more slow at giving, not advice, just giving recommendations. That's one. Two, I have this in the back of my mind, there's this little bug that goes, wait, but is this really okay? Let's reroute this 2 times, 3 times through the whole system, and let's see if it actually is the case. Okay, so there's something in my mind that is just not rushing, especially with the really sensitive topics, okay? That's not what I see these days with a lot of even with millennials, but born in the 90s decade, okay? With Gen Z, I don't know, okay? There's a lot that I don't know about the generation for the simple fact that these guys were raised with the internet already. I wasn't raised with it, okay? My first cell phone, I had it in college. Email, I was in college already. Social media in 2008. I was already almost 26, 25 going on 26. So, there were by the way, 25, that's the age where your brain finally matures. So my brain wasn't raised on social media, okay? I'm happy because of that. So with all this long, introduction, caveat, okay, nota bene, that's what we say in Romania. Let's get into the defects or flaws that I wrote down, and then we're gonna dissect myself. Okay, we're gonna do it together. So the first one that I wrote here as the defect or flaw in intimacy, know it all. Whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. This is the person who's either had sufficient experience, okay, with a variety of people, sufficient enough for them to say, I think I kind of get it now, or sufficient data reading, processing, whatever, acquiring or accruing to say, I think I get it. There's a risk here. And this is what my entire coaching work, that's why I barely bring statistic information here or patterns and say that you're gonna fall into one. Because I know that at an individual level, there are so many factors that can take you away from the general statistic, okay, the mainstream statistics, that It's, you got to take into consideration, what are those things that can take you away from what statistics say? First of all, your experience, previous experience. It can leave you with a lot of question marks from the past, with a lot of insecurities, and you second guess yourself and your experiences more than you need to. Or, on the other hand, lack of experience. So you're more pure, naive, but in a good way. Okay, I'm not saying ignorant. I'm saying pure or naive. So you're more willing to, engage with things that maybe aren't good for you. And you're also a little less knowledgeable about your body. Even if you hear something and you kind of get these subtle signs that maybe something isn't good for you, you don't have enough presence to say, wait, there's something off here. Okay? So when you are interacting with somebody who's a know-it-all, and that person doesn't think, wait a second, but this is an actual individual with their preferences, with their unique body, okay, built in a certain way or wired in a certain way. Maybe this person is tired. Maybe something happened in this person's life. Maybe they're pissed off with me, okay, because when there's anger, boiling up in the relationship, make-up sex doesn't work for the majority, actually. I'm sorry to tell you, if you're pissed off at somebody, chances are you enter being pissed off in the act, and you get out of it also being pissed off. Okay, there are really big chances with that. And this is a thing that was discussed in the book, The Erotic Mind by Jack Morin. It really does matter how you begin an intimate act. Yes, you can begin it on all levels, like you can be angry, scared. You can begin it in a variety of ways. If the entire interaction is done in the right way and with care, with sensitivity, with presence, with a little bit of patience, then you have a good chance to purge that initial low emotion and end the act on a higher emotion, which is what? Satisfaction, happiness, yes, contentment, not contempt, contentment. Okay, you're happy and satisfied and absolutely okay with what happened. Okay, with a blissful state, okay, ecstatic state, even, it is possible. Okay, these things are possible, and that's ideal. Okay, so just because somebody knows it all doesn't mean that they actually are equipped to deal with an actual individual who is a universe in themselves, in and of themselves. Okay, so all of us, we are our own ecosystems, sexually speaking, so that's the physical aspects. Erotically speaking, that's the inner, okay, the mindset, the fantasies, the hopes, the wishes, the values, the aspirations that we have, the meaning that we give to the entire thing, the criteria upon which we select. It's not sexuality, that's our erotic, okay? That's our power. Our power is erotic, not sexual, by the way. There is something to be said about the physical thing, but if it's without the internal aspect, yeah, there's not much you can do there. So we are entire ecosystems or universes. And if you have a know-it-all, or if you are the know-it-all, that's a defect or a flaw. Okay, we're going to look at the end of, dissecting myself with this. Second one that I wrote here, impatient. Okay, these are, usually it's with younger partners, okay, impatient, especially if you're raised on the internet with the whole short videos, short attention span. And if you listen to people from younger generations, you're going to see two things. Not all, okay? I'm going to say this. There are exceptions, and when I see an exception, I love that. But the majority, you know what they do? They speak super fast, okay? Blah, 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 really fast. The tone is like 2 or 3 octaves higher. I'm not saying volume. Sometimes, yes, they even raise or increase the volume. But I'm saying the tone. And yeah, that's not cool. And not cool because overall, how you are in life is also how you're going to be in this very sensitive area of your life, which is intimacy, sexual intimacy, erotic intimacy. So impatience can get you to overlook things, signs, cues that the other person is giving you. And let me tell you, the hardest thing for somebody is to actually ask, not just once, but twice for something, in case you didn't hear it the first time. A lot of people are still insecure to ask, to make a request, especially in those moments. There's a lot of shame and shyness and just, feel awkwardness somehow to ask for things in those moments, especially for the younger people. So if you have a younger person who's, let's say, needs different stuff, and they're having sex with a younger person who's impatient, yeah, you're gonna miss a lot of opportunities to make that experience better or even great. And the third one that I wrote here, I actually put insecure. And this one it's a flaw. I'm not judging or I'm not reproaching any of these, by the way. Okay, remember, I'm going to dissect myself at the end. So insecurity, to the point where you're overriding or overlooking your own signals, triggers, cues that you want something else, or what is going on is actually really, really bad and you just want it to stop. Okay, I'm talking that level of insecurity. I'm not saying be overconfident and just rude or just, I don't know, nasty with your overconfidence. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the opposite extreme of that is insecurity, like really sheer, genuine insecurity where you're overlooking yourself. That definitely needs to be worked on. Otherwise, you're going to be the person who, because they're so insecure, you run the risk to end your intimate moments with frustrations, not insatisfaction, other possible negative emotions. And if you do that over the long run, there's a high chance that you're going to end in therapy because you've subjected yourself to sexual abuse, okay? It is a form of self-abuse when you don't speak up for yourself, like at all, and you recurrently go through something that is really detrimental to you, okay? That one has my biggest compassion out of all of the, and I was also in this place, please believe me. I was also in this place with flaws or defects, defecte from Romania. Now I have two more words that I put here, and I had them with question mark, because I'm not so sure how you can, these are not, I'm not so sure about them. So here it goes. The fourth place that I put here was lazy, with a question mark, and the fifth place, repetitive, question mark. So somebody who's prone to routine, up to the point where it's boring. So I'm not so sure about these, because the first three flaws can sort of make you be so, what's the word? Either so sure of yourself that you don't want to try it because you've done it all and you're kind of boring, or you think you've done it all and everything is boring for you and you become boring in that sense also. Or you are so afraid to experiment with things because of insecurity, because of impatience sometimes, that, yeah, you tend to repeat patterns. Okay, so these are not in and of themselves. I think that they derive from the first three. Okay, so number one, know-it-all. Number two, impatient. Number three, insecure. Now, let's dissect myself here. So, know-it-all. I went through this phase briefly after I learned the intimate massages. Okay, for women, for men, for breasts, also for the anal massage, but I never made a class about that one. Okay, it's just, it's a subject that I didn't want to build a class around. Maybe I will one day, but I did build the 3 classes, the Art of Intimate Touch. I had this class, this series. And for a brief moment, it was like I had repeated this over and over when I was getting trained. And I also shared in one of those videos, a lot of the technique, I learned it on a pen, or for women, on props. I did have props. It was just to remember the sequence and also study myself, okay? How long can I do a sequence for without, seeming like, bored, like my wrists are hurting, like I'm tired, maybe my back is hurting and whatever. And I wouldn't want to try that one with somebody because I wouldn't want to make somebody feel uncomfortable too in intimacy. So I learned that. I tested myself on props. Okay, you got to test your limits somehow. And I chose to do it on props and discuss it in my training also. That's one. So for a brief moment of time, I was so fed up with the intimate technique that I was like rushing through them when I ever was intimate with somebody. In the rare moments, okay, there is something to be said about picky women. I've always been like that before the training and after the training. This hasn't changed. So there are not a lot of people that every few years I meet somebody who maybe I would want to be intimate with. It's not always mutual, so it doesn't happen. So yeah, there is that to be said also. I'm not the only woman on this planet. I also went through a phase where I was going for, let me just be intimate with somebody, because I can't be not having anything, knowing all of these things, but not being intimate with somebody for such a long time. Yeah, poor technique also, or poor strategy, actually. So I did go through this, and it sucks, okay? The lack of, or on my side, because I never asked for feedback, I was also impatient. The downside was, man, it feels nasty to be like, come on, let's just get on with it, because I know how this is gonna go down. Yeah, that's when I stopped and took a long break, and I was like, why don't you have sex when you really want to, with the people you really want to, and if it takes a decade or more until you meet somebody, next time, sure. Like, I'd rather just do my own practices for sexuality, because yes, just because I'm not intimate with somebody, like a lot of other people, it doesn't mean that we don't express. And when I got trained, yes, we are trained to express consciously, work on ourselves, okay? So there's a lot of stuff that you can do here, okay? Just because you're not engaging with somebody doesn't mean you're not doing anything at all. 2 different things. So, like I said, I was know-it-all, and also with it came automatically impatience. But on itself, I don't like to rush things. So the impatience part, I was on the receiving end of impatience in my life, before the training, after the training, and I was like, no. Some people are just slower and prefer slow burn, slow everything. We prefer to actually feel and enjoy. And there's a lot of depth, okay, that can be profound in being slow. There's a lot of it. There's also a lot of rich erotic expression, okay? It's not just sexual, like I said in the beginning, sexual, the physical aspects, outer aspects, the erotic, the internal, everything. Okay, so you have time for your entire inner self to unfurl with the other person, okay? And that means you gotta meet, like impatience. If somebody's impatient, they're really, for me, no. And I can relate with a lot of people who say, I don't want to be rushed here. I'd rather not do anything with somebody than rush into it. And as for the insecure, I was definitely that. Especially when I was on the receiving end of, aggression. I went through it. Right before I started developing myself here separately. Not that it was the only factor that got me on this path, because it wasn't. my desire was to do this growth with somebody. For a long time, it had been my desire. And whenever I would feel drawn to a guy, because I'm heterosexual, it was always with that desire to grow, to really explore new things, but beautiful things, okay? Slow burn things. Not too risky things, not too high impact things, because, you know, my body's not wired for that. And I think everybody should assess for themselves. I've had women in coaching sessions with this predicament. Okay, it's painful when you don't listen to your body for the long run. It's really, really painful. So, yeah, I was on the insecure side for a long time. It was also fueled by the fact that the people who really awakened my entire universe, you know, within, they weren't into me. It could happen to a lot of us, you know. Okay, those guys would have never touched me. Okay, and there I was, not just physically drawn to them, but the stuff that came up from within, I never shared with them that, you know, because if you see that somebody's not into you, you're like, okay, you don't overshare stuff, you know, you don't freak them out. I would hate to have that done onto me. So, you know, they never knew. None of those guys ever knew. But I saw myself seeking not just, you know, a physical fast ride, you know, no, boy, I wanted so much more. So the search for more was always there. And after I was, you know, single, rejected, whatever, then into an abusive relationship on top of all of the rest of stuff, I said, you know what, why don't I just start growing on my own, okay? If I ever meet somebody who wants to really grow with me and we're on the same page, because people want to grow in different ways in this area, why don't I just do the work on myself, okay? And a lot of people thought that was prostitution. Like in my country, I actually got, in my first years of doing this coaching work, I got a lot of shade from ignorant older men for looking ugly. You know, I was ugly to them. I was probably a prostitute, because what else does it mean to do the sexual work on yourself? That's all they knew. You got to look like a bimbo, and the sexual work means you screw a lot of people, right? Wrong, but you know, that's, yeah. So I did the work on myself, practices of all kinds, okay? Somatic practices, so overall, and also sexual related practices. Yes, you work with your sexual energy, you work with your arousal on your own, okay? You cultivate it. The Eastern traditions also did that. We also do it in the West. Like, although I'm Eastern European, I consider myself in the West compared to India or China, from where we have Hinduism, respectively Taoism. But so in the West, we can also do that, and it doesn't mean prostitution, by the way. And I've often said here recently, INFJ personality. You're not going to see an INFJ you're not going to see them, okay? We just can't. With the way we're wired inside, bro, satisfying or pleasing others to our detriment, sexually speaking, that, and getting money for it also, like the morals of it, I don't want to get into that either, but you're not going to see an INFJ go into that field. Like, yeah, unless they're trafficked into it, God forbid, but yeah, like there's got to be a really nasty thing to happen to an INFJ to go there. So, okay. So I had a lot of insecurity also in myself for the fact that, you know, I was rejected, because I had this in me, like if I like a guy, I'm just going to go tell him. And by the way, I got a coaching session with the guy was from Hungary, I think, a coach, men's coach. He was a guy also, on dating. And I wanted to get a coaching session with him and ask him, that was the one thing that I wanted with this guy. Do you ever coach the men that come to you that maybe women will approach them? That was the guy's reaction. He was like, what do you mean? I said, well, if a woman likes a guy and she goes and tells him. He was like, how? So I said, okay, I can tell you how I do it. So when I like somebody, I usually ask them, what do you think about me? Yes, I really go for that. What do you think about me? Like, I want to know. I just want to know. What's your opinion? Like, they fluster in that moment. And I'm like, okay, but I like you. And I would love to spend more time with you as, me being a woman, you being a man. And he was like, whoa, no, that never happens. I'm like, yeah, it does. It does. He's like, no, I don't know about you, but women don't do that. And I'm like, well, I'm a woman interested in men, so I do that. And I always got rejected, let me tell you. And I'm like, my interpretation was, okay, they didn't like me. Maybe they got scared, but I'm like, the mindset that I always had, if you get scared of a woman telling you that she likes you, she has the hots for you, she wants to spend more time with you, then what the heck are you going to do when you're going to be a father, when maybe your parents are going to die, because everybody dies. Maybe your wife is going to get sick one day, really sick. I hope not, but you never know. Or maybe your child's going to get sick. Maybe you're going to lose your job. Like, those are the things to be scared of, not a freaking woman telling you that she's into you. Anyway, the guy said, no, we don't train them for that because that's, okay, maybe an exception, but most women don't do that. Let me tell you, I've also quit doing that. If I ever happen to like a guy, that's it. I'm not going to tell him. And by the way, when I confessed to a guy, it was usually a guy my age. So, adult. So I'm now probably if I were ever to meet somebody, he would be probably around his 40s. So if I'd see a 40-year-old man freak out because a woman, tells him that I don't want to deal with that. So I've learned to zip it in those moments and just, breathe, do practices, just let it unfold itself without the guy knowing. Unless the guy does something, because maybe, I'm not a closed book or something. You can kind of see that I'm into you. If I'm ever into somebody, the guy will know. So unless they do something. So that whole thing, I had a lot of insecurity because of that, okay? Like I said, I'm going to dissect myself. It's a long dissection here. If you're still with me, you're a hero. So what was my coaching advice to myself? For the know-it-all, okay, I did it intuitively. I'm like, okay, take a break. This is not the way you want to be, because that feeling that let's just get over with, get it done with, because I know how it's going to end up or go down. I don't want to be like that. So I just, if I ever catch myself doing that, I'm like, okay, break. I'm going to go, sleep, watch a movie, eat carrots. I swear I must have been a rabbit in a different life. I eat carrots a lot. So, stuff like that. With the impatience, usually I'm on the receiving end. Usually. What am I talking about? In my life, I saw that I had the tendency to be on the receiving end, so I'm not exactly impatient. So it's okay. And with the insecurity, well, that's the whole work that I've been doing. Also on myself. Like, I'm not just doing, coaching with other people. I'm my first client. And I think if everybody's sincere, every coach out there, every counselor, every therapist, we are our first clients, respectively patients. Yeah, otherwise we can't do the work with anybody else. So with the insecurity, that's what my journey was also about for me. And hopefully other people, women especially, were inspired in that sense. If some men were also inspired and got knowledge or anything good out of it, awesome. Really awesome. So a long talk here, but I assure you it's much better to kind of talk than the nasty news that reached me from everywhere, including my country, okay? Like right now, the entire world just seems blown up in the worst way possible. And I want to, hopefully I've contributed with something constructive here. If you made it this far, leave my favorite emoji, which is the sparks. Leave a comment with 1 spark, 2 sparks, 3 sparks. Please do that, okay? Otherwise, if you want to support my work, I have the Patreon community. Check it out. You can support me for a month or more if you like the stuff that I upload there. If not, I'll just see you at my live events. If you're in Bucharest, Romania, you can get a coaching session and actually address the topics of your interest or concern with me in a coaching session. And yeah, I got some online programs also. I'm going to put a link tree underneath so you can also find the online programs that I have. And see you next time.